Welcome to Happy Movie. Last episode, Joel was seriously injured, and Ellie have to take care of him.
Although Joel's wound has been stitched, obvious signs of infection have appeared. Ellie has been by his side, but this cannot last long, especially with the dwindling supply of food.
She chews jerky and places it by Joel's mouth. Then, holding a gun, she exits the small cabin. After scanning the surroundings, finding no pursuers, Ellie breathes a sigh of relief and walks slowly into the woods. She must quickly hunt for food. However, the cold weather and frozen ground make animals scarce,
And it's not helped by Ellie's limited survival experience. Luckily, she found a deer soon.
After choosing a sniper position, she recalls Joel's teachings. She pulls the trigger forcefully. The deer is hit, but not fatally. Two strangers find it first, debating whether to take it. As they consider, Ellie shouts and appears with her gun. Caught off guard, the two men reluctantly lower their rifles. One of them identifies himself as a priest.
Looking calm and knowing Ellie can't carry the whole deer alone, he suggests a trade with supplies. Ellie immediately asks for antibiotics.
The priest nods, mentioning some antibiotics in Silver Lake.
He claims they have supplies and offers a trade for half the deer. Ellie agrees to exchange half the deer for the medicine.
The priest seems sincere and immediately sends his companion to get the medicine.
Then, he drags the deer to an abandoned cabin. The two sit around a fire and start a conversation.
The priest thinks it's dangerous for Ellie to be alone. He invites her to Silver Lake. Silver Lake is a survivor's village formed spontaneously. They used to live self-sufficiently, but the unusually long winter has affected crop growth. Even wild game is scarce. In Silver Lake, someone recently died,
And his daughter wants him buried.
but the priest refused, said the soil is frozen and is hard. We should wait until spring to bury him.
To help the community through the winter, and get more food for the community.
The priest and his companion went hunting in the forest,
When they hunt, they met Ellie in the forest.
and then they talked to each other in the cabin while waiting for the medicine. Meanwhile, priest shared his life before outbreak. A joke about a teacher turning into a preacher strangely amuses Ellie. However, the priest's expression darkens again.
It turns out the deceased companion was killed by a man with a girl.
When Ellie realizes it's too late, the priest's companion appears at the door with a gun. Fortunately, the priest has no intention of harming Ellie. He instructs his companion to hand over the antibiotics they just obtained.
Ellie dares not mention the deer meat again.
She picks up the antibiotics and hurries back.
Looking at Joe's deteriorating wound,
Ellie becomes confused once again. Where should she administer the antibiotics? After a brief thought, she stabs near the wound. After doing everything she can, everything that needs to be done has been done. Now,
all that remains is to pray and wait.
in the Silver Lake town on the edge of the forest, the streets exude desolation in the aftermath, as the two worry about their dwindling food supply.
A man enters with fresh meat.
What is it?
Venison.
After the ingredients are processed,
All survivors gather in the cafeteria. Suddenly, the door is pushed open.
the priest returns with the hunted deer. Everyone falls silent.
What kind of meat is in their bowls? The priest's face is somewhat grim, quickly changing the subject. He has already discovered the man and girl who harmed their companions before.
Tomorrow, he will gather people to search. The daughter of the deceased scolded the pastor for not avenging immediately,
But the priest walked up and slapped her directly.
then kindly told her, "Now I am your father."
You should understand what respect means. Until the pastor's sincere prayer was finished.
Everyone began to eat.
In the blink of an eye, it was the next day. Ellie looked at Joe's wound. Compared to yesterday, it was indeed much better.
So she gave him another shot,
She opened the door of the wooden house.
and the warm sunlight poured in, but Ellie was not in the mood to enjoy it.
She started to shovel the snow.
She also had to take care of their horse. Suddenly, birds in the distance were startled. Ellie instantly felt something was wrong. She quietly went to check in the direction of the flying birds. Unexpectedly, a few men were approaching. It turned out to be the priest and his men coming. Apparently, they were not as kind as to let Ellie go.
They just wanted to follow her trail to find the injured Joel. And at this moment, Ellie was extremely anxious. No matter how she called, Joel remained unconscious,
She had no choice but to leave her own knife.
instructing if someone comes.
Kill them,
And then she quickly ran out of the basement.
blocking the door with a movable cupboard. Then she headed towards the direction of the priest and the others.
She had to let this unwanted group away, giving Joel the best chance of survival.
But these people were not a disorganized bunch.
They shot the horse directly, and the huge impact left Ellie passed out. The arriving crowd wanted to kill Ellie, but the priest quickly shot to stop them,
He wanted to take the girl back to town and leave 2 more people to take the horse away.
while the remaining 3 were responsible for killing Joel. A bearded guy searched for the first house, and it is where Joel and Ellie stayed before.
He also discovered signs of habitation.
He began to quietly move the cupboard blocking the basement entrance.
Although he tried to keep the noise down, he still alarmed Joel as the bearded man approached the bloody bed along the stairs.
Joel suddenly stabbed him in the neck with a knife until there was no movement.
Joel then released his hands tightly around the man's neck.
Not long after, the others searching for Joel noticed that their companion was missing.
While searching for people, they fell into Joel's trap. As a result, the remaining 2 were all captured.
Joel was ruthless.
After a brutal interrogation, He quickly forced out the location of Silver Lake.
At this point, he was burning with anger, taking advantage of his own sleep. He even spared no mercy for a little girl. All the residents of Silver Lake deserve to die. At this time, Ellie woke up from her coma.
She found herself locked in an iron cage. The priest outside still had a kind face.
He thought Ellie would have a hard time surviving alone in the apocalypse. It would be better to join Silver Lake and start a new life.
Ellie had realized that the other party was not a good person. She ignored him without saying a word.
Only when the priest left
Did she start to look for opportunities to escape?
until the next moment, the little girl was suddenly stunned in amazement. Even the priest who came to deliver the meal noticed something unusual.
Following her gaze, he quickly saw a man's ear in the corner.
Ellie suddenly thought of something.
Looking at the chunks of meat on the plate, she scolded the priest, asking if he also wanted to chop her up.
The priest helplessly shook his head. What you kicked over was just venison.
As for the residents eating human flesh to fill their stomachs, this was also a very reluctant choice.
As the guardian of the town, he couldn't just watch everyone starve to death, and Gerald, in order to protect Ellie, didn't hesitate to kill others.
The essence of the two is actually quite similar.
Ellie seemed to have a realization. She gradually calmed down.
The priest took the opportunity to speak. Since their first meeting, he felt that Ellie was a born leader, decisive, calm, and courageous.
And he himself was getting old. The residents needed someone like Ellie to continue protecting them. Ellie became even more silent.
She suddenly mentioned Gerald, asking if the priest could spare him. The priest was delighted after hearing this. He immediately said that as long as Ellie joined, he could agree to any conditions.
Ellie seemed to be completely won over. She slowly extended her hands. In the next moment, Ellie suddenly forcefully grabbed the priest's fingers. She wanted to seize the opportunity to take the key.
Unfortunately, she was repelled by a strong punch.
The priest had completely run out of patience. He threw out a line, prepared to become dinner, and turned away.
Meanwhile, Gerald had already entered Silver Lake, following the traces of blood on the snowy ground. He arrived at a remote warehouse. This place stored many unused items, including Ellie's backpack.
It seemed that the residents here had captured many survivors. Continuing to explore deeper,
Joel found the corpse of the horse.
and on the roof behind, there were actually several frozen human corpses hanging. Meanwhile, Ellie had been forcibly dragged out of the cage. She seemed to anticipate her fate. Seizing the opportunity, she bit the priest.
But this didn't stop her from being fixed on a huge shopping board.
Ellie could only shout out loudly, "I've been infected." The bitten priest was also infected.
Then she revealed the wound on her arm. Both men were shocked,
Ellie seized the opportunity to swing at one person.
then quickly escaped from the room. Unfortunately, the main door here was tightly closed.
She had to grab a burning stick at hand when the priest approached,
She threw it with force.
but she didn't expect to ignite the curtains in front. The priest didn't care about the spreading fire and continued to search for Ellie.
He really wanted to know what was going on with Ellie's wound.
Could she be the rumored carrier of antibodies?
Ellie didn't plan to sit and wait for death.
She picked up a knife and leaped out from behind him.
Although she was thrown away,
She still didn't give up.
the injured priest became even more furious. He pressed his entire body onto Ellie.
At this moment, he finally revealed his beastly nature.
Ellie despairingly shouted
She picked up the nearby knife.
and attacked the priest. When she pushed open the restaurant door, she finally met Joel, who had just arrived.
Ellie finally felt at ease. The madness and helplessness disappeared in an instant, as if she had found a solid support again. This concludes the content of episode 8 of The Last of Us. The next episode will bring the grand finale of this season.
If you like our movie, please like and subscribe to Happy Movie.
Please stay tuned. See you in the next episode.